His touch sparked a fire within, something profound, something perilous. Then his lips brushed against my neck, gentle at first, then growing firmer like a boulder. A breath caught in my throat. My fingers clutched his arms, his lips descending, kissing, teasing, tasting with an intoxicating allure. His fingers pressed into my hips, pulling me nearer, directing me precisely where he desired. He descended further. Welcome to the realm of emotional love stories. Remember to give the video a thumbs up, share your insights in the comments, and subscribe to keep up with our newest narratives. May you find joy in tranquil, soothing moments. My sincere gratitude to you. Now, let us set forth on the adventure that awaits within the tale. Steam curled around me, thick and heavy, enveloping my body in warmth as I sank deeper into the bath. The house was meant to be empty. My daughter will not return until tomorrow. Alone in the stillness of the night, I surrendered to the embrace of tranquility. My eyelids grew heavy, drifting into a gentle slumber, while my fingers danced across the water's surface, relishing the soothing warmth that caressed my skin. It had been an eternity since it had found such genuine relaxation. As I breathed out gently, I felt the tightness dissipate, leaving a sense of calm in its wake. Suddenly, the door creaked ajar, accompanied by a quick breath drawn in. Not minimal, eyes flew wide open. He stood there imposing and resolute, enveloped in a stillness that speaks of winter's grasp. His grip tightened around the towel draped over his shoulder, his chest rising and falling as if he had forgotten the very essence of breath. The young man who holds my daughter's heart, Thomas. His gaze flickered briefly, yet it was sufficient for me, witnessing it sail, yielding to something new. Unbearable heat flooded my cheeks, my arms instinctively moving to shield myself, yet it was too late. He had caught sight of me. Apologies. His voice trembled, the Adam's apple rising and falling. Neither of us lingered for a heartbeat longer. Then he jerked, a breath sharp as he slammed the door shut behind him. I lingered in that moment, my heart racing in my ears, my skin still warm, though the heat was not solely from the bath. He believed I was absent, while I was convinced I was present. In solitude, yet an unspoken understanding lingered between us, a shared awareness of the moment we had both stumbled upon. I ought to have felt a deep sense of embarrassment. I ought to have let out a scream. I draped myself in something, yet my mind was consumed by the expression in his eyes just before we delved into it. Be sure to show your appreciation for this video. And do consider subscribing. The channel experiences remarkable growth, and I genuinely appreciate it. Your unwavering support. Thank you at this moment. Let us proceed. The moment the door slammed shut, I let out a quick breath, my hand meeting my own in a moment of connection. My pulse thundered beneath my fingertips. I had to gather my strength in unison. With a swift motion, I wrapped the robe around myself, yet the fabric was delicate, scarcely grazing mid-thigh with the sash, the sole factor maintaining its closure. The choice was hardly one of modesty. However, I found myself reluctant to rummage through my closet with my daughter's boyfriend lurking downstairs. Thomas. I swallowed, a heavy lump forming in my throat by the time I stepped into the kitchen. They had arrived ahead of time. My daughter, radiant, watched Thomas at the counter, one hand cradling a drink. He raised his gaze. The instant I entered, his gaze locked onto me. It was but a fleeting moment, a mere second, before he averted his eyes, shifting uncomfortably in his seat, his fingers curled more firmly around the glass. He was never meant to be here, yet my daughter faced me, her face alight with joy. "Mother, I trust this is acceptable. Thomas will be spending the night here." For a moment I paused. His presence loomed larger than life, already perilously near. What words could I possibly find? I summoned a smile. "Certainly, feel free to make yourself at home." "Residence." Thomas raised his glass ever so slightly in a gesture of recognition, yet his gaze swept over me again, a fleeting moment that lingered in the air, only for a fleeting instant. Just enough to set my skin ablaze, I cinched my robe securely around me. This was destined to be an extensive journey. Night had descended, and the house had nestled into a tranquil stillness. A profound stillness enveloped the room following the meal. Ava and Thomas had withdrawn to her room for the evening, their laughter gradually dissipating into the stillness. Behind the closed door, I lingered downstairs for a while, sipping tea in an attempt to calm my nerves, striving to shake off the tension. How his gaze had hung in the air. Alone in my bed, I gazed at the ceiling, urging myself to drift into slumber. Then I perceived it gently. Initially, a subdued movement stirred softly, a soft rustle of sheets, followed by a sound that seized my breath, leaving it trapped in my chest. A moan escaped, and I tensed for a fleeting moment. I spoke to myself. I found myself envisioning that the house was toying with my senses. Yet it arrived. Once more it lingers, subtle yet undeniable. I rolled onto my side, my heart racing wildly. Fingers clutched tightly at the edge of the blanket. This is not something I ought to be hearing. A gentle sigh escaped the confines, soon accompanied by a muted chuckle. Oh my goodness! My stomach nodded in a disconcerting manner. I ought to rise, switch on the television, don my headphones, and drown it all out. Yet I found myself frozen, for the sounds had grown sharper, more distinct. With a rhythmic breathlessness, an unavoidable sensation coursed through me, my face ablaze as I reclined. I feel stiff, uncertain about what to do with myself in light of this entire situation. This was incorrect. This is not something I ought to be hearing. Yet, despite my efforts to push it away, a singular thought infiltrated my mind, a realization that sent my heart racing. Thomas was undeniably good, and I found myself at a loss regarding how to navigate that realization. I drew the covers tightly around me, hoping to shield myself from the echoes of what I had just heard. But deep down, I knew it was futile. For now, it was a sound forever etched in my mind, and even more dire. The thoughts swirled in my mind, but the house had fallen silent once more. The sounds had ceased, leaving in their wake a thick, suffocating silence, yet sleep eluded me. I reclined, my gaze fixed upon the ceiling, while my thoughts danced restlessly, refusing to find peace. No matter how hard I endeavored to cast it aside, it remained, much like I did. Stuck in a fleeting instant, I found myself unable to silence the noise. With a frustrated sigh, I cast aside the covers and rose from the bed. I sought a remedy to cleanse my thoughts. Descending the stairs with a gentle touch, I ventured into the kitchen. The cool tile anchors me as I extend my hand toward a bottle of wine. I filled a glass, savoring each deliberate sip, attempting to dispel the lingering thoughts. A tightness wound itself around my heart. Suddenly, I sensed a presence lurking behind me, compelling me to turn around. And there he stood. Thomas stood in the soft glow of the kitchen, shirtless and clad only in his underwear. I drew in a quick breath. With my fingers tightening around the glass, he leaned casually against the doorway. His arms were crossed over his exposed chest. His body retained the warmth from the place he had just occupied moments before. His gaze lingered on me, slow and assessing, before a smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth, as if we were too loud. His voice carried a playful undertone. I parted my lips, yet silence enveloped me. Warmth flooded my cheeks, embarrassment coiling in my stomach. I tilted my head and took another sip of wine, praying he wouldn't notice how my hand trembled. Thomas indeed witnessed. He drew nearer. "Have we disturbed your rest?" he inquired, his tone gentler now, almost teasing. I averted my gaze, feigning interest in my beverage, yet one could not overlook the warmth radiating from his form, the ease with which he moved, exuding confidence, fully aware of the effect he had. My gaze drifted downward, a misstep, for there it lay, bold and unmistakable, causing my breath to catch. He observed yet remained still. "I understand." The whispers lingered, their gaze fixed upon me with intent. "It certainly is, isn't it?" I took a deep breath. "It would be wise to retreat to the comfort of your bed." His smirk deepened. "Is that truly what you desire?" In a heartbeat, the distance that separated us dissolved into nothingness. Thomas's fingers grazed against mine, slow and deliberate, as though he were pausing for my permission to continue. I didn't stop him. My breath hitched as he led my hand downward, pressing it against the unmistakable form of him, solid, warm, and unmistakably real. My fingers curled instinctively. The thundering of my pulse echoed in my ears. His gaze remained fixed on mine, observing, anticipating, challenging me to comprehend the effect he had on me. He whispered, sending a shiver cascading down my spine. I ought to have stepped back, to have departed. Instead, I allowed him to loosen the sash of my robe, the fabric cascading down from my shoulders. Chilled air colliding with warm skin, gathering in a serene puddle at my feet. Thomas's breath caught as his hands rose to explore the newly revealed contours. His touch sparked a fire within, something profound, something perilous. Then his lips brushed against my neck, gentle at first, then growing firmer like a boulder. A breath caught in my throat. My fingers clutched his arms, his lips descending, kissing, teasing, tasting with an intoxicating allure. His fingers pressed into my hips, pulling me nearer, directing me precisely where he desired. He descended further. A quick intake of breath escaped my lips as his mouth traced my chest, his teeth lightly brushing against my skin, teasingly igniting waves of sensation within me. My head tilted back, a soft, tremulous sound slipping from my lips before I could rein it in. Thomas let out a soft groan as he wrapped his arms around my waist. In one fluid motion, he effortlessly lifted me, placing me onto the cool granite of the kitchen counter. A surge of anticipation and exhilaration coursed through me. Metha embraced the exhilaration of risk. At no point did we find ourselves alone in this house. We might find ourselves in a precarious situation. I scarcely had a moment to absorb the situation before he thrust his body against mine. His heat was unmistakable as my legs instinctively wrapped around him, drawing him closer. "Your incredibility knows no bounds," he whispered, his voice heavy with a blend of reverence and desire. With determination, he advanced. Unhurried, intentional. My lips parted with a trembling breath, fingers weaving tightly into his hair, his shoulders. Thomas paused, his breath warm and heavy against my neck, as though he were battling an inner turmoil. In those moments, he moved with a slow, deliberate rhythm, his hands steadying and grounding me. My nails dug into his back as he buried himself deeper, his breath growing heavier and rougher. The tension mounted, a palpable energy building between us, spiraling and climbing until, in an instant, he pulled me off the counter, gripping my thighs tightly. He lowered us both to the cool tile of the kitchen floor, and now I found myself on top. Thomas's hands anchored my waist, steadying me as I felt his muscles tense beneath me. For a moment, we remained still, suspended in anticipation. Then gradually, I began to roll my hips, testing the movement, probing his control. A deep groan rumbled from his chest and his hands tightened around me. His restraint was beginning to falter. I set a slow pace at first, observing the way his jaw tightened, the way his fingers twitched against my skin, as if battling the urge to dominate. I could sense his struggle for control, and that only fueled my desire to push him further. I leaned down, my lips hovering just above his, teasing him as his breath hitched. His hand slid up my back, pulling me closer, attempting to erase the space that lingered between us. The rhythm grew urgent, a fire licking at my skin, pulling me higher until it shattered. I gasped his name, my body trembling against him, my head falling forward onto his chest. Thomas groaned, his grip tightening as his body followed mine. Seconds later, his breath was warm against my temple. For a long moment, neither of us moved. We lay there on the cold tile, our bodies tangled, hearts pounding in sync. Reality crept in, the weight of what we'd just done pressing into me. I should have felt guilt, shame, regret, but all I could think about was how badly I wanted more. Some choices come with consequences, but in that moment, it didn't feel like a choice at all. I knew it was wrong, but it felt too good to stop. What would you have done? Would you have walked away or let the moment take over? Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this story. Make sure to like the video and subscribe. It helps the channel grow tremendously, and I truly appreciate your support. Thank you.